Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're taking a truly fascinating journey. And I mean, we are going all over the map here, through anthropology, ancient Hindu mythology, and modern psychology. We're exploring one massive unifying theme, and that's how humanity battles chaos and finds structure in the dark. We're going to look at the literal darkness of the Stone Age, the mythological darkness of a crumbling world, and then, that psychological darkness of feeling totally aimless in our modern lives. It's a remarkable narrative, and we've got some incredible source material to help guide us through the whole shebang.
So, it all really kicks off with one simple, yet incredibly profound question. How do we find structure in the dark? I want you to keep this question right in the back of your mind throughout this entire explainer. Because as you'll see, we're going to explore how our ancestors literally used fire to build a circle of structure against night predators, how ancient texts prophesied a world losing its moral structure, and ultimately, how we can build our very own frameworks today to navigate the absolute chaos of the modern world.
All right, let's set the scene with Section 1, the ancient night.
Think about your life for a second. Tonight, you're going to walk into a room, flip a switch, and boom, light floods the place. You literally won't even think twice about it. But for 99.9% of human history, that switch simply did not exist. When the sun went down, the world went completely terrifyingly dark. And more importantly, it became a playground for apex predators. For over 300,000 years, every single one of our human ancestors spent roughly half their lives in near total darkness. Moving at night basically meant becoming food. This was our stark reality, until the mastery of fire. Now that dates back roughly 1 million years to places like Wonderwork Cave in South Africa. And fire? Well, fire was a real game changer. It didn't just keep people warm, it created this literal 30-foot circle of safety. Inside that circle, you lived. Outside of it, you were completely vulnerable to the chaos of the night.
And that 30-foot circle of fire, it fundamentally birthed human culture as we know it. Anthropologist Polly Wisner actually spent years studying the conversational patterns of hunter-gatherers, and what she found is absolutely fascinating. During the day, about 80% of conversations were entirely practical. Who was hunting where, logistics, who's gathering what. But at night, sitting right there around the fire, that dynamic flipped completely. 81% of nighttime conversations were stories, myths, and big adventures. Fire literally gave us extra hours, and those extra hours shifted our brains from just surviving the day to actively imagining the future. The campfire, in a very real way, was our first classroom and our first theater.
Which brings us right into Section 2, the lost state of mind.
So we've just seen how darkness birthed storytelling, but how did this ancient darkness literally structure human consciousness and the way we sleep? Well, it turns out the way you and I sleep today, the whole straight 8 hours thing, is practically brand new to our species. Historian Roger Eckertz spent 16 long years digging through historical records, and he discovered that before artificial light, humans naturally slept in a biphasic pattern. Meaning, we went to bed near sunset for a first sleep of about 4 hours. Then, we actually woke up in the middle of the night for an hour or two. This period was historically called the watch. People would lie awake to reflect, maybe interpret their dreams, or even go visit neighbors in the dark. Then, they'd head back down for a second sleep until dawn. And if you think that's just some old historical quirk, get this. In 1992, Thomas Ware ran an experiment proving this is still hardwired into us. When he subjected volunteers to 14 hours of darkness a night, they naturally reverted exactly back to this ancient structured timeline.
I think this just brilliantly illustrates exactly what we lost when Thomas Edison commercialized the light bulb. You see, that ancient watch state was essentially an entirely different state of human consciousness. Weir's experiment showed that during this midnight waking hour, people's brains produced high levels of prolactin. Now, prolactin is the exact same hormone released during deep meditation. It was this peaceful, highly reflective pause in the middle of the darkness. Now compare that to our modern night state. We absolutely bathe our retinas in blue light from screens right up until we close our eyes, which completely tricks our brains into thinking it's still daytime. This suppresses our natural melatonin, fragments our circadian rhythms, and leaves us dealing with what is basically an epidemic of insomnia. We literally traded a built-in biological structure for convenience of a light switch.
Now let's shift our perspective up a bit, moving from personal biology to cosmic mythology. In Section 3, the darkness of Kali Yuga.
Just as we lost the literal structure of the night, ancient Hindu mythology proposes this cycle where humanity periodically loses its spiritual and moral structure too. This dark age is known as Kali Yuga.
And, as outlined in our source material, and we're just neutrally reporting what the texts say here, its mythological signs are eerily resonant with our modern anxieties. The texts describe an era where scientific conveniences actually turn into prisons. People become lazy, heavily reliant on artificial creations. It's kind of like the modern equivalent of AI replacing genuine human relationships. The mythology goes on to say the environment rebels with extreme weather, droughts, and acid rain. We see this extreme moral decay where greed dictates power, violence becomes normalized in the streets, and human lifespans plummet to just 20 or 30 years. It's a remarkably vivid depiction of a society that has completely lost its circle of safety and its guiding structure.
In fact, there's this striking quote referencing the prophecies of the Vishnu Purana that really sets the tone here. Time has closed its eyes, and Kali Yuga has entered its final stage. Man, it just paints a picture of absolute desperation, doesn't it? It's a metaphorical darkness so profound that the natural world literally turns its back on humanity. According to the mythology, a chaotic state this deep requires a massive intervention, basically a cosmic reset to restore the balance and bring the light back.
And that mythological intervention brings us right to Section 4, the Cosmic Reset.
So, how does the ancient lore solve this overwhelming darkness? Well, it happens through the birth of an avatar named Kalki to devoted parents Vishnu Yash and Sumati. And this happens in the peaceful, untouched village of Shambhala, a place completely removed from the surrounding chaos of Kali Yuga. But to actually overcome the chaos, Kalki's cosmic mission requires some highly structured steps. He doesn't just, wake up one day and easily defeat chaos. He actually has to learn the mechanics. First, he's guided and trained by 7 immortal beings known as the Chiranjeevis. For instance, Parashurama teaches him weaponry, and Ashwathama teaches him complex battle strategy. Then, he has to face Kali's greatest demonic generals, Koka and Vikoka. Relying heavily on his training, Kalki uses Ashwathama's specific tactic to physically separate the unkillable demons in order to finally defeat them. Ultimately, he deploys the ultimate weapon, the Brahmastra, to defeat the entity Kali, destroying the darkness of Kali Yuga and ushering in the Satya Yuga, the age of truth and light. It's this perfect ancient narrative of mastering specific skills to overcome overwhelming darkness.
Now, let's see how this all builds right back into our own modern lives with Section 5, Playing the Game.
Okay, so we've talked about the literal darkness of our ancestors and the cosmic darkness of mythology. But what about the personal darkness? You know, that creeping feeling of being aimless, stressed, or depressed in the modern world. Our psychology sources suggest that much of our modern distress actually comes from a lack of intentional structure. The antidote to that, it's something called the flow state. This is a trance-like state of complete immersion, structure, and challenge. And honestly, this is exactly what we experience when we play a well-designed video game. Video games are addictive precisely because they provide missions, clear challenges, and a very visible progression of skills. Our minds are literally craving this. When we don't have this structure in real life, when we're just blindly following the default paths handed down to us by society without any personal intent, we become totally lost. Video games are artificially providing the firelight in the dark. They give us a clear circle of structure.
So the absolute crucial point here is, how do we apply this to reality? Well, we gamify our lives. You have to consciously choose the character you want to play, rather than just settling for the one you are hardwired to be by default. First, you need a lifelong vision. Think of it as a screenshot of the future you actually want. Second, you build a hierarchy of goals, stretching over 1, 5, and 10 years to give yourself actual missions. And third, you have to master the everyday mechanics. Look, just like a kid failing at a new video game over and over until they finally learn the controls, or, honestly, just like Kalkia learning battle tactics from his masters, you have to expect to be terrible at first. You build daily habits that act as your training ground, constantly leveling up your real-world skills.
And that brings us to the ultimate takeaway of this explainer. What kind of character are you choosing to play in your remaining hours of light? Think about it. We evolved to need the structure of the campfire in the dark. We spent millennia telling myths about heroes who bring light to a chaotic age. But right now, today, it is entirely up to you to build your own structure, master mechanics, and step out of the dark. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today. Take these lessons, build your campfire, and go level up your life.